Yeah, you're supposed to study sex. It's part of your human life cycles. It's part of your human interactions. Hmm. The fact that they tie your tubes is they worried about your reproductive. They worried about your genes in the general population. When they hurry up to tie a woman tubes, if it's not her choice and they're trying to convince her, her genes have something in them that they don't want her having more babies. And you'll know, especially when they start talking tying your tubes after your first one. That's how you know they don't want you, specifically you, having more babies. All right. How can a woman help the man improve on the feminine energy so they can be balanced? I'm going to show you what's going to happen. Kendra, just because you can't have healing sex, that don't mean you can't have sex daily. Healing, if it's painful, if sex is painful for you, there's something wrong. It's not supposed to be painful. Your cervix is supposed to relax during sex. When your cervix restricts during sex and causes pain, because this is what happens. Your cervix restricts, it closes up. Eventually it's going to close your whole vagina. If you continue to have the sex, it's going to end up swelling up where nothing else is going to fit in there. And the sex is going to have to stop or it'll be too painful. When it starts at the cervix, that's called the Great Gate or the Pearly Gate. It's called the Pearly Gate because it's behind the pearl tongue. You got to go past the pearl tongue to get to the Pearly Gate. The gate is the cervix. We on our way to heaven, y'all. I'm finna tell y'all how to get there. The pain that closes the gate is when you trying to force yourself into a relationship with somebody that you don't have your heart and your soul convinced that person is right. You trying to accept somebody against everything in you that's telling you not to accept them, then your cervix will start to close up on you. Your cervix will start to close up on you as your early warning signs, and the longer you with them, the more painful it'll get, and the closer to the opening of the vagina, the pain will become to the touch. That means that you will be physically painful to be touched. And then your secretions are going to stop. They accelerate that when they give you a hysterectomy. If they find out a woman is with a dude that's causing cervical pain, they're going to offer her a hysterectomy so fast. Because they don't never want her to get the gig is up. You sleeping with an unworthy. You sleeping with an unworthy, so you can only experience pain unless you unworthy. If you unworthy, meaning you haven't done the self-work, then you can also experience the pain. But no matter what, the balance is not there because one of y'all not right. A guy could be hung like damn near like a horse and have sex with a woman and never cause her any pain. And here this dude come with the millimeter Peter, and she can't stand, the pain is too much for her to lay with him. And she don't understand why. She think, oh, I just need a big one. It's not that. It's the energy that's not compatible. It's not the size, it's the energy that's not compatible. And so, yeah, that's why they don't like mothers to come to the doctors with the women. Watch when y'all go to the doctors with y'all pregnant daughters, they be trying to run y'all off. Okay. India, the tumors are not from a dirty penis. And yeah, Kendra, the man can go crazy. Okay. So then, if you, Kendra, if it's not because of pain and you just not interested, then that's perfectly normal, and that's due to the level, your spiritual level. When let's say, for instance, a woman that only has arousal periodically, that means her spiritual level drop, and not until it can come up to a certain height will she be aroused. But as soon as that level of spirituality drops, she not aroused no more. That's because she's naturally, innately a spiritual person. Yes, an unworthy man will definitely cause pain in a worthy woman, but most of the time, she probably started off as equal to him, and she continued to do the self-work, and he didn't, and it became painful. I'm going to get into the tumors in 1 second. Yep, and endometriosis. Okay, the tumors, what they call fibroids or fibroid growths. If they're non-cancerous fibroid growth, that's just like a skin tag. And because of the energy type and the location of the uterus, the body is deceived into thinking it's pregnant and feeds nutrition and spirit energy to the tumor. But there's a chemical in the tumor that is sending a signal to the woman's uterus as if she's pregnant, but she's not. But it's not giving her the full pregnancy symptom or signal, or else it would stop her cycle. So it's just enough, like a birth control pill, it's just enough to stop you from making the egg. The tumor, probably producing a different chemical, give you just enough to allow the body to grow the tumor without interrupting the cycle. Because you have different chemicals involved in the cycle. The endometriosis, the endometriosis is most of them, not all of them, but most of them come from a reckless man trying his best to hurt a woman so he can hear her moan during sex, and he's penetrating recklessly and in a way that causes her to bruise somewhere. The bruising, the body sends blood to the bruised area. Again, you are in the area of reproduction. So as you grow the lining in the uterus wall, and you done been misused between your legs, and you got bruises in places, your body has to send blood there. So you end up with endometriosis or inflamed endometrium. The lining of the uterus becomes inflamed. But your doctors also do it too. They put chemicals in there that'll inflame it if they want to give you a hysterectomy, the same as they give you cancer. But the natural development of endometriosis is pretty rare, where the man is pounding on the woman. He had to be pretty reckless. And some women like it like that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. They take all of the guys, give them one name as one person, and you change those names in the translation, and the layman will never know.
Right.
But the biblical seminarians know they lying to the people, and in order to get they preaching certification, they just go along with the lie.
That's what we do.
Go along to get along. So if you continuously go along with the lie, you can't liberate nobody or free nobody's mind because you live in a lie.
But I'm gonna say this, Rod, just like I've said when the times when Grand Sheik has made this like sort of like blanket statement about all preachers already know, and all preachers do not know, because all preachers don't go to seminary. All preachers, and if they do, like me, they may go to a college that has a specific evangelistic focus, and is not even in comparative religion. They're always putting Christianity up as the this is the example, and anything other than is, is an abomination. So they basically, when they do comparative religion, it's not to give you an opportunity to see that there are other sources of information that are historical and factual that this stuff is based on. Most preachers sit in churches and have sat and listened to preachers from the pulpit, got pulled into believing that they were called to do the same thing that that preacher or bishop or whoever was doing, and then they get to do it, and they do it from their heart. It is later on when they get into the inner workings of what goes on behind closed doors in the back room, and the conversations and the humanity and lack of divinity of those men and women of the so-called cloth. It is then that they see the hypocrisy, and I'm speaking from experience, then that you see the hypocrisy of what's really going on, and you got to question whether any of this ish was true, because they're just out there doing this thing, but they're living a whole different lifestyle. So in defense of the ones who went in with their heart and soul in it, and didn't know that it was what it is, then I'm saying all don't know. But what I do have a problem with those who, once you find out, that they continue to perpetuate that.
Well, one of the things about those who go through the seminary that know, and those who come in as they call those hands-on preachers. They was taught hands-on by somebody in the church that helped them to learn how to basically run the church.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not as responsible as the ones who go read it in its original language, understand that it don't say what they telling you to say.
Absolutely.
Um, it's a writing by Khalil Gibran called John the Madman that expresses the sentiment of you telling these people lies. I'm gonna tell them what's really in the book, right? There's so much stuff in the Bible that you can use it for any form of manipulation you choose to, if the people don't understand their own spiritual development. It becomes a easy tool of exploitation for those seeking to be wealthy. It's a way to get a whole lot of material gain for well-placed lies. They don't have to know they lying when they come in, but at some point, the discovery is imminent. You cannot continuously read that Bible and preach, because when you start preaching in front of a group of people, most people don't know this. You start off, you might be a fraud, but you start getting messages. Hey, stop telling them lies to the people, right? And sometimes the message might come from a 3-year-old in the church saying, why that preacher lying? Right? I know when I was 6 years old, I knew they was lying because I asked my mama and got my shoulder ringed off. She wasn't mad at me for saying it. She was mad at me for saying it in church. Mama, why that man up there telling that lie? I was in Grand Rapids. We was living in Grand Rapids at the time, Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was Pastor Abney preaching. And he was going over the standard Jesus script. And this was my first time really, really, really listening as a child to somebody tell the Jesus story. He told it exactly how he's taught to teach it. And I immediately said, this man lying, as a 6-year-old. And it was a blatant outburst. All the church ladies turned around looking at me, and it embarrassed my mama to the point where she pinched me and wrung my shoulder off, got me crying up in the church, talking about, you can't be saying that up in here. And then when we got home, later on, she talked to me, and then, because she did, even if she disciplined us, she still talked to us.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't just discipline us and didn't never give us nothing. She gave us a lot of wisdom, even though she did spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't think she gave me enough ass whoopings. Whereas some of my siblings might feel like they got too many, right? But when I
Where did
look at
you fall in the? Are you youngest, oldest, middle?
I'm the seventh child, and
Of how many?
it was originally 10 of us. It's 8 of us left.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'll be number 7. My mama was number 7, and her daddy was number 7.
Okay. Significance.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what they call a lightning strike. And my grandmama got struck by lightning.
Really? I mean, actually.
Yeah, she was working on the fields of Mississippi down by Macomb, Magnolia, Tylertown area, and the storm came in, and she got struck by lightning. That was my mama's mama. My mama said she was. I think my mama was 5 years old when it happened. She never stopped grieving her mother her entire life.
Oh, so she did not survive the lightning strike.
No,
Hmm. Wow.
yeah,
Right.
that's where it ended her. But her spirit was strong in my mama, and it was due. So this goes back to the psychic connections with people. It's from the heart chakra, and it's from the place of pure love. And this is why most people can't never attain psychic abilities, is because their heart is confused with the ways of the world, right? So those with the golden heart can shine the brightest, but they first have to get the charring off from being exposed to the dirt of society. And that's what we working on. That's why we here. That's what our karmic debt in being here is to clear it by following our path of our book of life. You don't know what your book of life is until you get a certain level of awareness and look back on your life. And it's what they call dying while yet living. It's part
Mm-hmm.
of doing shadow work while you're going through the dark night of the soul. So when you look back on your life, you see certain patterns, key names, key figures, who's influenced what.
And archetypes. You see certain
Yeah.
archetypes
So
that keep
archetype
repeating.
is part of the required study in the priesthood to allow you to understand which aspect of God you're dealing with. The highest aspect of God we call Big Mama. And the next highest aspect of God we call Big Papa. Right? Big Mama feminine, Big Papa masculine, but we call them the old energies. Right? So when you hear about them, call them the gods from days of old. It's written in a lot of the texts around the world, but don't nobody know what it means. Because they don't call for help, they can't get none. They calling the wrong names, right? Jesus is spelled Iesous in Greek, right? Using applied grammar, IE becomes fused as IS, U cancels out the O and makes the US sound us. So when you pronounce it as a single word, it says ISIS. But the story that it's telling is not the story of ISIS, it's the story of Moses or Horus, right? So the character, the Old Testament was written as a recovery text for the New Testament, meaning the New Testament was written first.
We were told always told in the church and in Bible college that the Old Testament is the new concealed and the New Testament is the old revealed, and that's the way they kind of played it off. But then you
Because they got to give you the right to discover that the Old Testament is written after the New Testament, which turns religion on its head.
And we were also taught that there were 400 silent years between the ending of the old and book of Malachi and the beginning of the new, and that in those 4 years God was silent. What we do know now, those who study, is that those are years of what I guess sort of reconstruction, which came out, ended up being a renaissance afterward. That was when they were the Piso family and the ones that were
So the misunderstanding comes in
The ones
here.
that were writing, like you said, the one to try to make the two in agreement. That 400-year period, they were that nobody could read the so-called Bible because they were putting it together.
Right, but that 400-year period is actually uh, a period where apocryphal books was written.
Which they, for the most part, disqualified from that. Like the Gnostic texts, they didn't want us to read the Gnostic texts.
Right. Well, not necessarily. They called the apocryphal books. The
Well, yeah, the
apocryphal
apocryphal
books.
books, and then later on, the Gnostic, anything
Right.
that was
So
given gnosis knowledge, we weren't supposed to have that. We were just supposed to believe.
right. So they got several different groups of information that comes from this understanding of missing books of the Bible. First, source material. Because when you source material back, it's a book called Black Gods Who Wrote the Bible. No, Black Africans Who Wrote the Bible, right? Because the Bible was written by Etruscan Moors for the purpose of military conquest, and it was compiled and rewritten, I should say, based off ancient texts in order to control the narrative. And the
True.
controlled narrative is what Rome has been doing the whole time.
True.
I used to always hear my father say, when you look for the when you look for the trouble